Right, that then takes us on to our next item, 5.8, which is on page 227 to 252, which is an application for a food store. Peter.
Thank you, Chair. The application is for the erection of a retail food store, formation of access road, car parking, and associated works on land at the junction of the A701 and Pentland Road, Old Pentland Lone Head. The detailed components comprise a rectangular store with a floor space of 1,878 square metres, a deposit returns unit, a vehicle access of Pentland Road, 104 car parking spaces, an internal service loading and turning area, and landscaping. The main structure is a typical food store design on a single ground floor level. The highest part of the structure would be the ridge on the northeast elevation at 8.4 metres. The roof then slopes away to the southwest where eaves are 5.5 metres high. The elevations would primarily be formed of coated aluminium. The building sits to the rear of the site behind the proposed store's car park. The site is located within the countryside where there is a presumption against inappropriate development. Furthermore, there is a clear policy statement against new retail development in such countryside locations. In addition, supporting retail in this location has the potential to impact on other nearby centres such as Straiton, Pennycook and Bonnyrigg. The report considers that this policy position is not outweighed by any material considerations. The report sets out that there have been 6 representations and 9 consultation responses, the details of which are set out in sections 5 and 6 of the report, and the recommendation is to refuse planning permission for the reasons set out in the report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. I believe this was called in to committee, Peter, is that correct?
That's correct, Chair, by Councillor Winchester.
Okay, so I'll just open up to Councillor Winchester and give her first bite at the call-in.
Thank you. I wanted to call this in. The fact that planning have said that it's in the countryside is maybe not quite true. It is exactly opposite Asda, and Straiton is a couple of 100 yards away. But with the advent of the high cost of fuel, with at the time the possibility of Edinburgh having a congestion charge, everything was, I think, needs to be discussed by all of us. I've had about 15 emails in support of this. I haven't had any against it, although I do know one of the community councils is definitely against it, and I've listened to them. All right, yeah, thank you. And I've certainly listened to those. But I do think it will benefit from having a wider discussion.
Right, thanks for that, Councillor Winchester. I've got Councillor Smale first and then Councillor Parry.
Yes, I feel we're having a rerun of the debate we had about the Dalkeith Aldi, which was also technically not allowed to exist under the rules of the plan that was approved in 2017. But I mean, retail world has moved on, and I doubt this will affect Central Lone Head very much at all. I think it's all about intensifying competition at Straiton. The land itself, I don't think, is a particular landscape value. So on the balance of public advantage, I think the case is for this to be approved, albeit subject to improvement in the landscaping.
Right, thanks, Councillor Smale. Councillor Parry.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just a question for the planners in terms of how these reports are put forward. And I think it must be particularly confusing for new councillors to be presented with a report that says this breaches all these planning conditions, to then get emails from other companies, Aldi themselves, to set out exactly why that is not the case. So I think it would be good if planners could answer that. And obviously, as Councillor Winchester just mentioned, I've certainly had, I think I just had a quick count through, and I've had at least 21 emails over the last few days. I'm sure lots of members have as well, and I think That's not represented in the paper either. So I know it's not, you know, there's always going to be instances where we kind of get people contact us after the point that papers are written, but it would be good to hear, Peter, your reflections on perhaps some of those conflicting kind of messages. That we've had.
Okay, Chair. Just before I get into the detail of that, I'll just make a point that it sounds like that some elected members there have been contacted by more local residents than the planning authority have. We've received 6 representations in total, so that's what's referenced in the report. So I don't know whether those 6 are overlap with those individuals that have contacted elected members. I don't know. The other thing is that it sounds like possibly that Aldi's have emailed elected members directly. Again, I've not seen that. But in terms of actually the planning position and what's behind the recommendation, is that, yeah, the 2017 Midlothian local plan, as well as setting out policies for the Midlothian, it sets out a spatial strategy in map form. And in that map form, it identifies pieces of land with particular land uses or proposed land uses. And in relation to this site, it is sitting within what is defined as countryside. Whether it feels like countryside, whether it's adjacent to other development, it just is allocated for countryside, and that's what sits within the document. So that's what the starting position is for the planning officers. That's just a correct reflection of what the spatial strategy says. The next policy component which we've picked up on is obviously there's policies about supporting development in particular areas, and there's a strategy in relation to town centres and retail development which supports what's commonly sometimes referred to as a sort of town centres first policy, but you effectively have a hierarchy that you go through. In an ideal world, you'd want retail to start in your town centres. If you can't get in the town centres, are there sites adjacent to a town centre, so it extends a town centre? If you can't deliver that, you then move to what's identified as a commercial hub, and in Midlothian terms that means Straiton. The next tier down is identified new areas of growth for retail, and in Midlothian's local plan we identified Goldbridge, Redkew, Newton Grange, the A7 corridor. There was a capacity study done in support of the local plan which identified there is capacity for additional retail in that corridor. And then after that you then fall down to your local and your neighbourhood centres, and there's a whole collection of those in the district. If it doesn't fit into that hierarchy, it's contrary to policy. So that's how the officers have then reached a recommendation in terms of the policy position. It's identified as countryside and it doesn't fit into the retail hierarchy. So that's the policy position. You then move on to, are there any material considerations which outweigh that policy position? And the report talks about a nervousness that if you grant plan permission for retail development in this location, will that result in new investment and new jobs, or is it a displacement from Straiton, Pennycook, Bonnyrigg, for example? So are you effectively taking trade from these centres? And the officers have reached a conclusion that actually we don't think there's enough evidence or information that suggests this is not going to impact negatively on those centres. So that's where we've got to with the recommendation. I appreciate, I've not seen it, but I imagine Aldi's argument is that it's close to Straiton, so what difference does it make if it's just over the road? You've got a lot of retail activity here anyway, and just not wanting to name names, but apart from Lidl, we're only one of the few discount retailers, so we're not at odds with, shall I say, Asda, M&S, Sainsbury's. We've got a different offer that we're offering, so they're saying, but overall there's a balance to be struck and we should be supported. So that's what the position is in terms of the planning position. At the end of the day, Chair, this is a judgment for elected members to make about whether they feel that the economic circumstances or the other material considerations outweigh that policy position, and then obviously you can take that view, Chair.
Right, thank you very much. Councillor Pottinger and then Councillor Virgo.
I find it just a little bit difficult because I don't know the whole history of this one. But nothing against, and I do shop regularly with Aldi, and I understand the points of other places in Midlothian maybe more need of a discount store than in this West Corridor. But I'm not afraid of granting it for the competition to others in the neighbourhood. But it's just, I think, just mainly if there's vacant units nearby, have we actually done the most to maximise utilisation of vacant units, and particularly within Straiton itself?
Thanks for that, Councillor Pottinger. Peter? Peter?
Sorry, Chair, I've been caught out without putting my mic on. The starting position is, yes, there are vacant units in Straiton, in Pennycook, Lonehead. That's referenced in the report. I understand that Aldi have said, look, these units aren't appropriate for the offer that we want to make in terms of floor space. So they may be vacant, but they're not any use to us, sort of approach, which is okay. If that's their position, that's their position. But of course, there is the balance then, isn't there, between if you grant plan permission for a retail unit out with an allocation, is that making it harder to fill those vacant units? Or I've heard arguments the other way. So, well, actually, if you've got a busy retail area, it will actually help fill the vacant units because you've got more activity. So there's a balance or an argument there. Either way, you can make. So there's a judgment call to be in that regard. But yeah, Chair, I mean, some of the Straiton, it's a difficult balance this because you want to support Straiton. It's one of our primary retail areas. We want to do what we can to help it, but at the same time, there's a balance because there's a potential risk, in particular Pennycook, that corridor of people's movements between Edinburgh and Pennycook. Where do you do your shopping? Where do you stop? The more activity that takes place at Straiton, the harder it is to fill vacant units at Pennycook, I would suggest.
Councillor Virgo, and then Councillor Alexander, and then Councillor Scott.
Thanks, Chair. Just noting that the three objections do come from the local community councils, but there doesn't. I mean, for obviously, for complete honesty, I'm fairly inexperienced in a planning committee. This is my first one. It would be interesting to see in future reports like this planning comment, or I don't know whether I'm overstepping the mark in asking for it. Some sort of comment from experts on this, because looking at them, obviously I want to give them all the credit that they're worth, but some of the objections seem to be fairly subjective and unsubstantiated. Coupled then with we had recently an A701 development plan presentation, which this would seem to kind of feed into as well. I think I'm finding it difficult, I think, in a rambly sort of roundabout way to understand. No, I understand why I understand the planner's reference to the allocation, but I'm struggling to understand why this isn't being promoted as beneficial to the community at large.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor Alexander.
Yes, I think that the benefits to the community would be great. I'm also wondering how species rich the area is, and if we could not actually, by allowing this development, make Aldi actually improve the species wealth, and also I'm thinking of the net chlorophyll. So by growing trees, etc. We actually might improve the area in species and in reducing or increasing our net zero plans.
Thanks for that, Councillor Alexander. Councillor Scott.
I hope you'll forgive me, but I do say I wished I had this kind of problem to deal with in my ward. As the ward member for Midlothian South, I'm a wee bit saddened and sometimes disappointed. There's such a large concentration of shopping options in the west of Midlothian, with so few in the south. Low-cost, affordable supermarkets would be great benefit to the communities of Gorebridge, Newton Grange, and Mayfield also is near us. And there are many very low-income families here, and our ward would greatly benefit from having this, kind of supermarket competition. So can I just do a wee plug for Gorebridge here, and can I say to any supermarkets listening, go Gorebridge. We've got the land, we've got the people, come and see us. So I hope that's okay.
No, it's a fair point. But unfortunately, the application that's in front of us is actually down in the Straiton area. And I just want to say a few things as a local member, plus being the chair. I blew hot and cold on this particular application, but the difficulty I think I have is that you're now starting to take retail over to the other side of the 701. We've also got problems from the community in Old Pentland Road that are really, really unhappy about what's going on there. And I think they see a retail development going there as something foreign to what they're trying to do, because they're trying to get speed limitations on an existing 60 mile an hour road. There is land between Noble's Garage on the corner and Asda that's zoned there in Pentland Industrial Estate, and it doesn't mean to say that you would be refusing the actual principle of a store like this coming in, but there's an opportunity for them to go on the other side, and it just makes perfect sense to me that it all should be on one side. And who knows in the future, depending on what happens with the 701, that it might be through the next local plan that area might be opened up. But I just feel popping across the road there with a supermarket, and indeed there's also other thoughts about what they want to do behind the caravan park there. It just seems to me that we're doing a wraparound on the other side of the road, and it would be preferable to keep it on that side. It's not to say that I wouldn't want this kind of store to come in. Of course I would. Sorry, Councillor Scott, but they want to come to Midlothian West at the moment. But seriously, that's my reservations on the application. Therefore, I was I blew hot and cold on it. But actually, what's in the plan, not the local plan, but what's in the report at the moment actually probably sits more tidier with me, and it's the opportunity of getting them across to the other side of the road, because if they're interested in being in this area, they won't go away, and I think that's why I'm coming to. And just with regard to the number of emails, but we don't know where they came from. That's the difficulty. We don't know where they came from. They could have come from anywhere, and it did look to me like a little campaign along the way, unless Councillor Winchester's been round knocking doors and asking people to write in. I don't know, but anyway, that's an aside. Okay, Councillor McEwen.
Thanks, Chair. You'll not be surprised that the Ward Councillor for Penicuik wants to comment on this application. I'm really concerned about the traffic management impact and what it's going to have for the area. You know how difficult it is to travel that road at the moment with only one supermarket. I've no objections to supermarkets coming into Midlothian. Indeed, I welcome them. The more competition, the better. But the A701 alignment aside, we've got to look at this application on its own merit, forgetting about that A701 realignment. I'm really concerned about the traffic management impact, and I could draw your attention to page 231 on consultations from Transport Scotland. It says they do not object to the application, subject to no part of the development shall be occupied until a comprehensive travel plan that sets out proposals for reducing dependency on the private car has been submitted. Has there been a traffic plan submitted? Has there any consultation been done on the impact of this supermarket realigning itself on the other side of the road from Asda? Indeed, I would go with the remarks, Chair, that it seems pertinent that both supermarkets should be on the same side of the road to further alleviate any traffic management. Has there any traffic management plans been carried out? Has any assessments been carried out, please?
I'll just push that over to Peter.
Yeah, there's two things there. In terms of the traffic assessment, it's considered that because of the size of the store, that it could be accommodated within the current traffic flows, but the expectation is that the applicant would submit what they call a green travel plan, which is actually a strategy to encourage non-car users to use the store. That's looking at active travel, use of public transport. That often comes as a condition if plan permission was granted. So that's almost agreeing that the store is going to operate in a particular way, but we want to try and get as many customers as possible to access it by bus or by foot. So this is what we're going to do. But in terms of the traffic flows, you're looking at maybe up to 100 vehicles at a particular peak point. So that's the sort of traffic number. So if you take retail peak, which is often midday to 1 o'clock on a Saturday, between those vehicles going in and those vehicles coming out, you're going to maybe have up to about 100 vehicles. So, and that seemed to be acceptable for a store that size in that location.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Pottinger.
Yeah, I'm sorry, listening to your comments there, Councillor Emery, about on the wrong side of the road. You know, and that's basically where I'm coming from, and also, if there's voids in Straiton retail park just now, I want some kind of numbers on this. They're saying that it's not big enough. You know, I'd rather make the spaces bigger rather than a brand new build on the other side of the road. And I don't know if that was ever considered as an option. And can you get some kind of square metre numbers on that? You know, the biggest unit square metres that's actually available just now in Straiton. And we know the figures of the proposed new unit square meterage. Just to get a wee bit more information on that. But yeah, it just seems to be on the wrong side of the road. It seems to be encouraging more car journeys to use it, and rather than a green transport policy. I'm also noting that the number 3 bus has been taken off to the Dalkeith campus, which used to be able to get people straight to Aldi from Mayfield. And you know, that bus was withdrawn without any advance notice. And you know, if there was a bus facility with the new Aldi at that side of the road, is there any guarantees that public transport could be maintained and sustainable for such a site?
Thanks for that, Councillor Pottinger. Councillor Parry.
Yeah, Chair, I just think it's odd that we're talking about this being on the wrong side of the road, because we've already got Burger King, KFC, Pentland Plans, which is a huge garden centre, the Secret Herb Garden are all on the other side of the road. So I don't think that's a kind of direction that we should follow. Similarly, I know that all the people that emailed me had Loanhead addresses in their emails as well, so I'm quite sure that they were constituents as well. And I think what a lot of those people in the emails were telling me was that they already use this particular brand of shop, but they travel into Edinburgh to do it. So from the point of view, the kind of, reducing traffic on our roads, this is local people anyway. Local people there's actually really good walkways already up towards Asda and the flow right round Costco and such. Like, I live nearby myself, so I'm very familiar with the area. And I think, given what we've heard here today, I would be minded to move against the recommendations in the paper and move to approve the application. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, fine. I'll leave that now because there's a couple of people still got their hands up, Kelly. Sorry, Councillor Parry. Councillor Alexander.
I was just going to say what Councillor Parry has just said, that there's quite a few businesses already on that side of the road, and also the bus terminus is also on that side of the road. So absolutely, I am quite willing to second Councillor Parry's motion to approve.
Okay, Councillor Alexander, thank you for that. Councillor Snell?
Yeah, I think we're in danger of becoming entrepreneurs and affecting to understand the very complex reasons to make a location. I don't think Aldi would be choosing this, which has to be built new, if there was any unit anywhere in that area that could be purposeful. Brian Pottinger slightly surprised me, because I think if you're in Mayfield and you want to go to Aldi, you'll go to the one in Woodburn, which you can actually walk to rather than take the bus. But maybe I misunderstood that. So if we stick to our knitting as a planning authority and don't try and overrule the consumer and the entrepreneur in the case of Aldi, I think the case has been well made that this does not disturb in practice our policies, even although the officers have been quite right in formal terms to draw attention to the fact that it's slightly outside our plan.
Okay. Councillor Pottinger, I'll let you back, and then I want to...
Yeah, I was talking about the Aldi at Dalkeith. The Aldi at Dalkeith, people used to rely on the number 3 bus to get to the campus, but they also relied on that number 3 bus to get to Aldi as such from an area that maybe needs served by a discount store. I've nothing against Aldi as a company. They seem to be a decent employer and pay the going rate for their staff. And it'd be great to bring more jobs into the area. But my only technical question I've not had asked was maybe people know this historically, but how many square metres is actually available in the biggest retail unit that is available or empty just now within Straiton? Yeah, that would help me make up my mind a bit more if I had some kind of numbers put in.
Certainly. Peter Arnsdorf, do you have that answer?
I don't have that information to hand, Chair, in terms of the size of the largest unit within
If I could just maybe, not in the numbers, Brian, Councillor Pottinger, but certainly M&S moved from one unit up the hill to another part of Straiton, and they've taken double the space that they had. Lidl's have then moved subsequently into I think the unit that M&S food store had. So there's been quite a bit of movement around. I think Halford's moved across as well. It's not just been on food. There's been a number of stores are not changing hands. Well, yeah, they're changing hands per se. Still the overall owner's still there, but they're changing hands. And my understanding is that the property developers there are actually, who own the land in Straiton, are talking about taking up the planning permission that they got some years ago to now make a start on extending the part of Straiton that they had planning permission for. So there's quite a bit of activity there. I don't have the numbers, but there has been certainly movement there. And since this application come in, there have been certain stores have moved already. Okay, we've got a mover and a seconder for approval. Is there anyone otherwise minded? No? Okay, that's gone through. Right. Thank you very much for your participation today, and happy shopping when it comes. And there's no private reports. The date of the next meeting is the 30th of August, and please note, everybody, it's back to 1 o'clock again. So that's good for that. And Peter Arnsdorf is signalling to me.
Chair, I just wanted to, in terms of the determination of the Aldi applications, there's two things. The first one to ask is the committee okay with me taking developer contributions from the store towards the A701 Aldi have already verbally agreed that they're accepted that in principle, so just need agreement from the committee. That's okay. And then, Chair, is it okay just to delegate these sort of conditions that we would use to myself as well, if that's okay?
Okay, if the committee agree with that, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Give them a discount, Chair.
Sorry?
As long as he doesn't give them a discount.
No discounts. No discounts.
All right. We'll double this. The Section 75 contributions. Ah, dear. Okay, right. Thank you very much indeed. As I say, the next meeting is the 30th of August, and it's at 1 o'clock, which is back on the norm where it used to be to actually help people with childcare needs for the kind of 3 o'clock shift. So, thank you very much indeed, and I declare the meeting closed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for all your part.